Have you ever noticed how your priorities shift as you grow older? The things that once felt essential, like maintaining a large circle of friends, may not hold the same significance anymore. Surprisingly, you might find that friendships are less crucial after the age of 70. It's a bold statement, but when you examine it closely, you'll understand why embracing independence and focusing on your own well-being can be one of the best decisions you ever make. In this video, we're going to explore 6 compelling reasons why friendships aren't as necessary in your later years as they once were. We'll uncover how your mindset, personal freedom, and even your health can improve when you stop worrying about maintaining relationships that no longer serve you. This isn't about loneliness. It's about living life on your own terms, free from the unnecessary expectations and obligations that can come with social ties. Stay tuned until the end, because you may find that letting go of the pressure to maintain friendships isn't just liberating, it could transform the way you view yourself in your later years for the better. Now let's get started. 1. You no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. One of the main reasons friendships may lose their importance after 70 is that you've already navigated the phase of life where social validation mattered. Think back to your younger years. How often did friendships revolve around proving yourself, fitting in, or keeping up appearances? Whether it was impressing colleagues, maintaining social circles, or ensuring you were included in gatherings, there was always an underlying pressure to be seen and accepted. Now, however, you're at a stage in life where none of that is necessary. You've built your legacy, and the opinions of others don't carry the same weight they once did. At this age, you've experienced enough to understand that true fulfillment comes from within, not from the approval of others. There's no need to chase friendships for status, reputation, or social standing. You are who you are, and that's enough. Many younger individuals spend their time worrying about how they're perceived, whether they're liked, admired, or respected. However, by the time you've reached your later years, you realize that your worth is not defined by others. You define your own value. Consider someone like Harold, a man in his early 70s who spent much of his life climbing the corporate ladder. He was constantly surrounded by colleagues, acquaintances, and so-called friends. Yet, most of those relationships were built on convenience rather than genuine connection. When he retired, those friendships began to fade. Initially, he felt an urge to reach out and keep those ties alive, but then he had a revelation. Why exert effort into friendships that only existed because of work? Instead of holding on to relationships out of habit, Harold shifted his focus inward. He began dedicating time to personal hobbies, rediscovered old interests, and, most importantly, stopped worrying about impressing others. Without the pressure of maintaining friendships, he discovered a newfound sense of freedom. No more forced small talk, no more social obligations, and no more worrying about whether people liked him or not. For the first time in a long time, he felt good. That's the key. When you no longer seek validation from others, you begin to recognize how much energy was wasted on friendships that didn't add real value to your life. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to keep up with others' expectations. The only person you need to answer to is yourself. 2. Peace becomes more valuable than socializing. As you age, something significant shifts. Peace starts to feel far more valuable than socializing. In your younger years, being around people may have felt necessary. The noise, the gatherings, the conversations all seem like parts of a life well lived. But as time goes on, you learn to appreciate the tranquility of a quiet life. Not just any quiet, but the kind that allows you to genuinely relax, free from unnecessary drama, obligations, and social fatigue. While friendships can bring joy, they also come with responsibilities, phone calls to return, invitations to accept, and unspoken expectations to stay connected. At some point, that effort can begin to feel disproportionate to the reward. Take Margaret, for example. At 74, she once had a large circle of friends, filled calendars with lunches, group calls, and holiday gatherings. Yet, as the years passed, she discovered that many of these social interactions felt draining rather than fulfilling. Conversations grew repetitive, with the same stories recounted time and time again. Some friends seemed only interested in gossip rather than meaningful discussions. One day, Margaret decided to step back and embrace her new reality. She let go of the guilt associated with declining invitations she wasn't excited about. She stopped feeling pressured to respond to every call or text immediately. Instead, she embraced the quiet. The time she once spent managing friendships was now her own. She took longer walks, spent time in nature, and finally read books she had been meaning to dive into for years. Most importantly, she realized that solitude wasn't loneliness, it was peace. That's the beauty of this stage in life. You're no longer obligated to fill your days with constant activity or conversation just to feel connected. You can enjoy your own company without the need for constant validation from others. You choose peace over pressure, calm over chaos. So, if you've ever felt guilty for stepping back from social obligations, remember this: you're not withdrawing from life. You're embracing a new kind of fulfillment, the type that comes from within. And this kind of peace only gets better with age. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time. Make sure to turn on the bell notification so you never miss a video. 3. Fewer friendships mean fewer disappointments. One of life's hardest lessons is realizing that not everyone you call a friend is genuinely there for you. Over the years, you've likely experienced it: close friends drifting away, people becoming distant when you needed them most, or relationships that turned out to be one-sided. By the time you reach 70, you start to understand that fewer friendships don't just mean fewer social obligations, they also mean fewer disappointments. Friendships, however strong, come with expectations, the need to check in, to be there for others, and to offer support. But what happens when those expectations aren't met? You experience disappointment. You call someone, but they don't call back. You make an effort, but they don't reciprocate. Suddenly, you find yourself giving more than you receive. At this stage in life, do you really need that kind of stress? The answer is a resounding no. Take William, for example. At 78, he's witnessed friendships come and go. Some ended naturally while others faded because he realized he was always the one putting in the effort. People he'd known for decades suddenly became too busy or uninterested to maintain a genuine connection. Initially, it stung. He questioned what he had done wrong and wondered why some people seemed to forget about him. Then, he had a realization he hadn't changed. He simply stopped tolerating friendships that weren't mutual. And that's the crucial lesson. When you relinquish the need for a large group of friends, you also let go of the disappointments tied to unmet expectations. You don't have to feel frustrated when someone doesn't check in, nor do you have to feel let down when a friendship fades. Instead, you can focus on the most important person in your life, yourself. This approach doesn't mean isolating yourself. It merely means choosing quality over quantity. By prioritizing relationships that truly matter, those that bring you joy and require little effort, you create meaningful connections, whether with family, lifelong friends, or the strongest connection you nurture with yourself. So if you've ever perceived friendships as bringing more stress than joy, remember that it's perfectly okay to step back. It's all right to choose simplicity over complexity and peace over frustration. You don't need a long list of friends to feel fulfilled. Just let go of those who were never truly there in the first place. 4. Your time becomes more precious. As you age, you begin to realize that your time is your most valuable resource. When you were younger, it might have felt like there was always more time to spend with friends, more time to invest in social circles, and more time to fret about who was in your life. But by the time you reach 70, your perspective shifts. You recognize that every hour, every day, and every moment is precious. Understanding the true value of your time leads to greater selectivity in how you spend it. Friendships, no matter how fulfilling, require time and effort. There are calls to make, visits to schedule, and plans to keep. While certain connections are undoubtedly worth maintaining, many are simply habits dragged along from the past relationships kept out of obligation rather than genuine enjoyment. At this stage in your life, you now have the right to ask yourself, is this how I want to spend my time? Does this friendship contribute to my happiness, or does it feel like yet another chore on my to-do list? Consider Richard, a man in his early 80s, with a once active social life filled with dinner parties, group outings, and frequent phone calls. Yet, over time, he felt differently. Long conversations that once brought joy now felt draining, while social gatherings began to feel more like obligations. One day, as he sat through another lunch filled with small talk and complaints, he had an epiphany. He didn't want to spend his time this way anymore. Richard made a change. He stopped saying yes out of habit and started saying no when he didn't feel like going out. Instead of spending hours catching up on gossip or listening to complaints, he dedicated his time to activities that truly brought him joy: reading, walking, learning new things, and simply enjoying the peace of his own company. To his surprise, he didn't feel lonely. In fact, he felt more fulfilled than ever before because he was spending his time in ways that mattered to him, not in ways that others expected. That's the key. When you let go of unnecessary friendships, you gain something far more valuable: time for yourself, time to engage in your passions, and time to savor life at your own pace. You finally have the opportunity to focus on your own happiness instead of trying to meet the needs of others. If you find yourself pondering whether to maintain certain friendships, ask yourself, is this the best use of my time? Because at this stage in life, you owe your time to no one. You've earned the right to use it however you choose. If you're still here and resonating with these insights, please comment number 4 below to let me know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so and turning on the bell notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Your support sustains our mission of creating valuable content to inform and inspire you. 5. True companionship comes from within. One common misconception about aging is the belief that you need a large circle of friends to find happiness. The reality, however, is that the most important companionship you can cultivate is the one you build with yourself. By the time you reach 70, you've spent decades learning, growing, and evolving. You know yourself better than anyone else ever could, and with this self-awareness comes the powerful realization, you are enough. For much of our lives, we're taught to seek companionship outside ourselves. We're instructed that being social is the key to happiness and loneliness, something to be feared. Yet, there's a significant distinction between being alone and being lonely. Some of the happiest individuals in their later years are those who embrace solitude not as isolation, but as an opportunity for self-discovery, reflection, and peace. Take Eleanor, for example. At 76, she used to believe that surrounding herself with people was essential to feeling fulfilled. She was constantly making plans, checking in with friends, and filling her days with social activities. But over time, she began to notice something troubling. Despite being socially active, she often felt drained rather than uplifted. Many of her friendships were more routine than genuine connections, and she found herself adjusting her personality to fit in with conversations, keep up with social expectations, and avoid feeling left out. Then one day, she chose a different path. Eleanor decided to spend time with herself, as she would with a dear friend. She engaged in activities she loved, listened to her thoughts, and truly enjoyed her own company. She took long walks without the urgency to call anyone, and visited cafes with a book in hand instead of making small talk. She devoted serene evenings to reflecting on her life, liberating herself from the obligation of maintaining friendships. To her surprise, she felt lighter, happier, and more at peace than she had in years. Many people overlook this truth. True companionship isn't about how many friends you have around you. It's about how comfortable you are with yourself. When you stop relying on others for entertainment or validation, you unlock a level of freedom that many people never encounter. You no longer need external distractions to fill your time. You become your own source of joy, wisdom, and fulfillment. The beauty in this is that when you truly enjoy your own company, you attract effortless relationships. Instead of chasing friendships out of loneliness, you'll discover that the right people naturally enter your life, people who respect your space, understand your values, and bring peace rather than pressure. So, if you've ever worried that letting go of friendships might lead to feelings of isolation, remember, the best company you can ever have is already with you. When you embrace this truth, you'll realize that you are never truly alone in the first place. 6. Letting go opens the door to a more fulfilling life. One of the most powerful things you can do after turning 70 is to let go. Let go of the pressure to maintain friendships that no longer bring you joy. Let go of the belief that your social circle defines your worth. Let go of the idea that being alone means being lonely. The moment you shed these expectations, you open the door to a life that is simpler, freer, and far more fulfilling. Many individuals cling to friendships out of habit, even when those relationships no longer add value. They attend gatherings they don't enjoy, answer calls out of obligation, and uphold appearances simply because it's how they've always lived. But what if you didn't have to do any of that? What if you gave yourself permission to release friendships that felt more like work and instead focused on the things that genuinely bring you happiness? Consider James, a man in his late 70s, who once believed that staying socially active was key to aging well. He made efforts to keep in touch with old friends, even when those friendships had become distant or superficial. He filled his days with social obligations, thinking that being busy equated to being fulfilled. But one day he had a moment of clarity. He wasn't enjoying it. Conversations felt repetitive, gatherings transformed into routines, and deep down he felt drained rather than connected. So he made a choice. He stopped forcing friendships that no longer felt meaningful and began prioritizing what truly mattered to him. He spent more time outdoors, focused on his health, learned new things, and embraced the freedom that came from no longer having to meet anyone else's expectations. In doing this, he discovered something remarkable. He felt lighter, happier, and more at peace than ever before. That's the essence of letting go. It doesn't mean closing yourself off from the world. It creates space for what genuinely fulfills you. It's about recognizing that your happiness isn't contingent on the number of people around you, but on how aligned you are with the life you truly want to live. When you embrace this mindset, you stop worrying about who is in your life and start concentrating on what brings you joy. You begin to appreciate the little things, waking up to a quiet morning, enjoying a hobby without distraction, and feeling at peace with your own thoughts. You understand that fulfillment comes not from maintaining friendships out of duty, but from living authentically and meaningfully. So, if you've ever felt pressured to do more to maintain friendships, ask yourself, is it genuinely adding to my happiness, or am I holding on out of habit? Because once you grant yourself permission to let go, life becomes simpler, lighter, and more fulfilling in ways you never imagined. Final thoughts. As we wrap up this video, take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed. The notion that you don't need friends after 70 isn't about isolation. It's about freedom. It's about letting go of unnecessary obligations, choosing peace over pressure, and embracing the life you truly desire. By now, you should see how stepping away from friendships that no longer serve you can lead to more joy, more time, and more fulfillment than you ever expected. What stood out to you the most? Which of these reasons resonated with you most deeply? Perhaps you've already begun to let go of friendships that felt more like burdens than joys. Maybe you've realized how much you cherish your own company when you give yourself a chance. Or perhaps this video has offered you a new perspective on why it's perfectly acceptable to prioritize yourself. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments one thing you learned today and how you plan to incorporate it into your life. Your insights are important to us, and reading your comments provides great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support enables us to continue creating valuable content that informs and inspires. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.